Thank you very much. That woke you up, I hope. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الحمد لله نشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له عز وجل ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Dear believers, guests, friends, business people, I'd like to give you the best of greetings, the greetings of all the messengers and prophets of Almighty God. The greetings of peace be upon you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We praise God. The salutation that I just gave you, I'd like to give you the loosely positioned English translation. We seek refuge with Almighty God, with God's name, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer. We praise him and we magnify him and we beseech his aid and his guidance. We witness that there is nothing worthy of worship except Almighty God. He is one, alone without partners or associates, and we witness that Muhammad, who comes in the long line of messengers and prophets, is his servant and his messenger and the seal of the prophets. I'd like to thank AMC for the opportunity to be with you this afternoon and moderate this panel. I must also say to them that they are very brave souls to put an imam in front of the microphone in a conference like this. They are very brave because sometimes we don't know how to get out in front of this microphone. But I'm going to do my very best, and we ask Almighty God to guide me in my efforts to moderate the panel effectively and efficiently. I'd like to thank my brother Tahir for that presentation. And I must make one comment here, that brother Tahir, when you were making reference to all of those stereotypes, I'm one individual who can check all of the above. I've been mistaken to be Hispanic, of course African American, of course Arab, right? All of the above, and all of those stereotypes, I can say at one point in time or another, somebody has accused me of being all of them. So today, we'd like to say that we are about to change all of that. And before I go into the introduction of the panel, I just want to make, and I'd be very remiss if I didn't do this. There was a man who has had tremendous influence on my life, and many of you know who this individual is. It just so happens that this day of this conference is his birthday. And may Almighty God be pleased with him and have mercy upon him. He is a man that over 35 years ago encouraged the indigenous Muslim community to establish halal businesses here in North America. That man whose birthday is today, and I know I don't want nobody to get excited about the fact that we're recognizing his birthday, but I have to do this because it's very important and significant to this conference. That man is Imam ud-Deen Muhammad, who passed away several years ago. Many of you know him, and he has encouraged the indigenous Muslim community over 35 years ago to go into the halal business. Now I might say that one of his students is here also, who established halal in the great city of Newark, New Jersey. The great city of Newark, New Jersey, I have to say that. The great city of Newark, New Jersey. This man has established halal, and he was one of the authors of the halal bill that was passed as the first halal recognition in the state of New Jersey. That man is Akbar Salam, the owner of Unity Halal in Newark, New Jersey. And I'd be very remiss, and I probably would catch hell from Mayor Cory Booker if I didn't say to all of you business persons that are here in this room, the city of Newark is waiting to hear from you because it also wants to be a corporate business partner to any Muslim business that is interested in doing business in the city of Newark. So please come see me whenever you have an opportunity. With that, I'd like to introduce our distinguished panel for this afternoon, who will be discussing case studies on successfully reaching and partnering with mainstream corporations. The first very distinguished panelist that I'd like to present, many of you know, is Tariq, the president of Muxlim. Tariq Khan. To his left is Acree, the executive director of American Halal Company. Joohi Tahir is the vice president of marketing and sales for Crescent Foods. And Rashid, Ghazi, the co-founder of Paragon Marketing. Please join me in welcoming all four of our great panelists. Thank you for coming. We have presentations that will be given, 5-minute presentations by each one of our great panelists, and I'd like to start the presentations with the president of Muxlim, Tariq Khan.
This slide is actually the work of our lawyers, and it doesn't mean anything more than that we cannot copy that, and they just want to justify that they are a part of this presentation. Well, the face of America is changing, and I'm a marketer, so I look at it that this is really a great conference, and I congratulate Faisal and all the team. But this is really all about consumer. The question is about the consumer retention and the acquisition, and that's what all the marketers are about. So as the face of America is changing, it's creating opportunities for us. How do we really make a business case? We are living in a world which is becoming very diverse and very digital. When I sit down with my teenage kids on a dining table and I want to talk to them, they say, "Dad, text me." This is real, so we don't care what we think, it's what our consumer think. And as the time is changing, we really have to make sure that we really engage them in a way that they want to be engaged. If you really look at it, there has been a lot of talk about the Muslim population, good talk, bad talk, all kinds of things. But at the end of the day, there are 1.5 billion people globally, and they're consumers. They're not going anywhere. So instead of really looking at and focusing on one aspect of it, how can we make a business case to the corporate America and the world that there are 1.5 billion consumers with over $1 trillion buying power? So when you really look at it, and I was making a presentation in Europe, and somebody said that, what is the population of Muslim in the US? I said, if you look at any of these countries like Finland, Switzerland, Denmark, just the Muslim population in the US with the buying power and the size is bigger than any of these countries. So if you go to any major corporation and you say that we're going to give you a market like Finland or Switzerland, they would really jump on that. You can get that right here locally. 80% of the Muslims do not know that Islam may be the second largest religion in America. 80% of the Muslims in Europe may not know that Islam is the second largest religion in countries like France, Germany, or UK. So when you really look at it, and this is really looking at the European part of it, whenever people look at these numbers, they really get amazed that there are 21 million Muslims living in Russia. There are over 6 million Muslims living in France. They're your consumer. Don't look at them as Muslim, look at them as consumers and employees. And as we know that over 40% of our Muslims are aged under 30, a lot of them are online. Over 250 million people, Muslims, are online. So one of the best ways, especially for our next generation, for us to reach them is through the digital. A little bit about our company. We have two arms of the company. One is Global Diversity Marketing, which is focusing on the advisory side for the overall diverse businesses. And then we have Muxlim. We are focusing on 3 areas. One is the multicultural, the second is digital, and the third is really lifestyle. Muxlim is the largest lifestyle network for global Muslims. We have over 10 million monthly users, and we have visitors over 190 countries. We have about exclusive inventory of top 25 Muslim websites. The way we approach the corporate America is through 4 strategies, A, B, C, and D. The A strategy is the market intelligence. So a company that has never invested in this market, most of the time, because I came from corporate America, large organizations do not react on anecdotal information because there are a lot of Muslims you should invest. No, unless we can really prove them through market intelligence that this is a strong business case, they wouldn't react. The B is really the strategy part, and C is how to reach that market through offline or online. And when we look at the fourth, which is diagnosis, it's really the companies who have really matured invested in this market, how do they know that their ROI is good? At the end of the day, everybody is about the consumer. We want to make a strong case that a Muslim consumer has a better ROI than a general market mainstream customer. Okay. Just to give you a case study, MoneyGram is one of our clients. They came to us and they said that you don't have to sell us on the Muslim market. We have been in this market for a long time, and we are doing social networking, and everything is going fine. Now, social networking is really misunderstood today also. We said, okay, we'll launch a campaign for them. So we created a social networking campaign this Ramadan for them, and whatever activities that we generated in 4 weeks was more than what they had generated in the entire year. And that really wowed them that, once you know the marketplace and once you know your customers, you can really do a much better job. And based on that, they came back to us and here are some of the results that we generated, whatever we committed. At the end of the day, it's all about metrics. Corporate America really react on what you promise and what you deliver. Based on that, they have given us another campaign, which is outside different multicultural market in Wahy, we're doing the same thing. The second case that I quickly want to talk about is Wilson. Wilson is a sporting goods, it's a basketball company, a sporting goods company, and they came to us and they said that we have not invested in any multicultural market. And we were, wow. Think about it, you have basketball, tennis, soccer, and you have not looked at the multicultural market. So they said that we want to really test pilot in this market, what would be a best thing? So we said, how about Muslim market? And they said, what is a Muslim basketball? So there is no such thing as Muslim basketball, but Muslims play basketball. So we really did an online survey. We created something called Dream Team. So we went out and we did a survey, a pre-campaign. We found out that less than 1% people mentioned name Wilson when they talk about basketball. And then we went to Facebook, Twitter, and all that. So 95% of the market was clearly intact. So we created a campaign for them, and within 4 weeks, we increased their presence by 2,400%. And that really got their attention, that if you really go on a concentrated way, if you go mind deep through the expert, there's a great opportunity in that sense. So this was really a case for Wilson. These are some of the clients that we have gotten in the last couple of years. Again, this marketplace is really coming up. We are still making a business case. Why should we invest in this market? So the way we approach it, it's we try to make a business case on how, through the market intelligence, we can really invest in this thing. So this is something which is coming up in January. We are coming out with a new product called Muxlim Pulse. So this is really not for Muslims only. This is about Muslim lifestyle. So anybody sitting in New York, you punch in your zip code, and you would know everything that's going about, where to eat halal places, what to do, where to go for outing, where to go for movies, what to do. So everything that's about Muslim lifestyle. So that's hopefully, inshallah, coming in January. So that's all the time that I have with the introduction.
Tariq, thank you very much. How can anyone ask what is Muslim basketball? It would not be an NBA if it was Muslims playing in the NBA, am I right? Right, am I right? Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Hakeem Olajuwon, Shareef Abdul-Rahim, all of them are famous basketball players, and the NBA wouldn't be what it is, am I right? So, thank you very much, Tariq Khan. The next presenter is Jack Acree, the Executive Director of American Halal Company. Jack.
Good afternoon. Thanks everyone for coming out. This has been a great conference for me to attend, and this is something I'm not going to really go through a presentation, just talk about a couple of stories. I think that the Q&A and the discussion is very important as a part of this. The first thing I always like to address is words are very important to me, and the word partner is very important to me. What do we mean by that? And the way that we approach it, and I've always approached it, a partner, I think in the context of the way that this session was put together is thought of as someone that you make money from. someone you sell to, who's your customer going to be, that sort of thing. And that's, of course, is the key reason most of us are in business. But a partner is everyone that we do business with. It's people that we buy from. It's people that we contract with. It's people that we do co-promotions with. They're in every aspect of our life, and it's really important for me that I always come back to that. Even if I'm, and that brings me to really the second part of it, which is, what is my part in that partnership, and in different partnerships, people have greatly differing amounts of power. I know that by having been part of a brand new company in 2002 and walked into the offices of Walmart in Bentonville, Arkansas. Who had the power in that relationship? It didn't mean that I was inconsequential because they asked me to come. But just understanding my place and having a true humility as a part of that. We've been asked to talk about case studies and how that works, and I'll talk about that relationship with Walmart a little bit. I learned a lot from that. When we developed a business plan for Alexia Foods, Walmart did not appear in it. We were a frozen potato company that was all natural. At the time, we had no trans fats in them, which people didn't really understand what they were. But we were primarily going to go after the natural food trade. Very quickly, the market told us that this was not just what we should be doing. So much so that I kind of stepped out of my budget and went to a trade show that had a broader reach to it. And very quickly, at that show, a gentleman walked up to the booth. He happened to be the vice president of frozen foods for Walmart. And he said, "I think your products could sell in my stores." Now, so this brings me to the other key word in my relationships and that I have with folks in business and the partners that I work with is assumptions. I had an assumption about what it was that we would be doing as a company. I was wrong because I didn't include someone that ultimately my product ended up in 2,200 of their stores. They weren't on my radar at all at the time because I had a very narrow view of what my product was. So I did know enough after that meeting to go in and realize that I knew nothing about that company. And so what was it that I needed to know? We only initially got into 88 stores, about 50 of which were in Florida. And so there was a reason why they weren't on my map, because I didn't really know much about them. And that's one of the, if you live in the New York City area, it's good to travel, because it's a different world out there, and to really understand what, it's a big country, as IKEA says. And so what I did was, I booked a flight into Jacksonville on a Monday morning and out of Fort Lauderdale on a Friday, and I visited about 45 Walmart stores in Florida that we were going to be in. For that entire week, I drove through the entire state of Florida, so I could really understand who this partner was that I was getting ready to do business with, and what it was that they expected from me as a vendor, to truly understand that. And that's something that I try to do every time that a new relationship comes along. It's very important for me to really to dive in and understand that piece of the business, and what am I expected of in the relationship? What is my role in it? But then what do I look for from them? And the flip side of this is dealing with a major public company going through an acquisition process, which Alexia did in 2007, and understanding what were the key things that they wanted to see from us, and we at that time we had 3 different products we were selling basically in groups: potatoes, breads, and appetizers. Well, it didn't take long through the discussions to understand that ConAgra owns Lamb Weston. ConAgra is who we're talking to, they own Lamb Weston. Lamb Weston's the second largest frozen potato manufacturer in the world. ConAgra sold no bread at the time. They didn't care about the breads. They cared about the potatoes. So that's what we focused on, what the growth products were. So again, just asking the questions of myself, ask the questions of yourself. You know, where am I in this relationship? Where am I in this partnership? What is it that I don't know, and how do I find the answers? That's really been the key that I found when I've been successful. When I'm doing that, and I'm coming back to center on that has been very helpful. I look forward to your questions and comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. One note, those who have questions, there are index cards on the table. So we would encourage you to please begin formulating your questions so that we can begin to collect them and bring them forward and present them to our panel. One of the comments that I know I heard coming from Jack as well as Tariq has to do with the importance of alignment with respect to developing a relationship with a partner. I think that's very important for us to begin to think about in terms of how does our business align itself with a corporate partner, and does the culture itself, allow us the opportunity to create a trust that ultimately will allow us to move down the path together. As one person said to me, trust is a destiny-directed condition. So we have to see something within the destiny of the corporation that is in alignment, I think, with the destiny of the company that we represent. Our next speaker is Joohi, the Vice President of Marketing Sales, a professional in marketing strategy, realtor buying, as well as brand manager. Please welcome Joohi Tahir.
Okay, good afternoon. Assalamu alaikum. Greetings and peace to all of you. I have good news and I have bad news. We'll start with the bad news. The bad news is whenever I go anywhere, people say, did you bring any chicken? Did you bring any great Crescent tasty chicken? And my answer to you would be, unfortunately my biggest challenge traveling anywhere these days is just getting myself through the airport. So no, I didn't try to bring the poultry, but the good news is we're very grateful to our gracious hosts at MLink for the delicious lunch. So I hope you all enjoyed that. It was lovely. Really, just in brief to start, I don't want to assume that everybody knows about Crescent Foods, so I'm going to give you a very quick overview. Crescent Foods is a leading supplier of premium halal chicken. We are a Chicago-based company. We've been in business for the last 15 years, servicing accounts everywhere from your ethnic, local, small grocer, all the way to multi-unit retail stores, food service outlets, club warehouse, as well as including now select Walmart supercenters. Our product, simply the best chicken you'll ever taste, but I'm biased on that. Raised and treated humanely, fed 100% pure vegetable, veggie-based diet, free to roam, great moist, excellent chicken, natural with no preservatives, no additives. And it is sold in varying forms depending on who our customer is, everywhere from whole chicken, tray pack parts, rotisserie chickens, to value-added products, including flavored chicken patties. So that's just a quick overview. But I want to get started. And I think the first thing that we really need to do when we partner with mainstream is demystify the Muslim consumer. It's, whether you're speaking with a savvy buyer who's in a cosmopolitan city, or you're speaking with someone who's maybe a little bit more rural in a place that maybe they haven't come across the Muslim consumer, you really need to point out the fact that they're just like you. In many, many ways, this consumer really has likes and dislikes that I think everybody can relate to, whether you're a Muslim consumer or a non-Muslim consumer. Basically, who doesn't like freshness? Who doesn't like a natural, healthy product? Value-added packaging, something that's safe, food safe. How many times do we read recalls and hear in the news about food safety issues? Aren't we all looking for that? Of course, the price-value relationship, the feel-good factor after you buy a product. So basically, we stress to these mainstream partners that, frankly, you may be looking at us as a Muslim company or as a Muslim product, and in our case, I can only give the food experience, the food example, as a halal product, but mainstream is going to see the similarities that, guess what? Maybe by trying to serve this Muslim consumer, I'm going to be able to pick up a non-Muslim consumer too, because, you know, these kind of things, they service everybody. Isn't this what everybody wants? And frankly, when we speak about halal food, halal requirements are stricter than even some USDA standards. So with regards to the health of the animal, the treatment of the animal, you know, the processing, clean processing conditions. So consumer interest is going to grow in your product whether or not they ascribe to wanting halal. So what I'll take you to now is really the story. I was asked specifically when we talk about partnering with mainstream, tell us the story about Walmart. So here it is. As our dear friend and colleague, Mr. Abdulhamid Evans had mentioned earlier, and he's mentioned many times, there's a shift in a movement out there. Mainstream is actually going halal. It's not about halal going out to mainstream. That happens too, but the movement that's happening now that everybody here needs to be aware of and be very proud of is that mainstream is coming to halal. And they're driving it. And it's exactly what happened in our case at Crescent Foods. Back in August of 2008, the phone rang, and they reached out to us and said, we want halal chicken. So no, we didn't call and leave messages, and try and get through to Walmart, but they called us. They knew exactly what they were looking for, so they reached out to us. The product was launched very quickly, in a few months' time, in select stores and the supercenters, and of course, they chose Michigan, and we've seen so much today about, you know, the Dearborn area, because that was the market they were looking to serve. Our relationship progressed where we were invited out to Bentonville, Arkansas, and we were able to sit down face-to-face and have a strategy meeting with them. Communication, absolutely key. They were able to see, and they solicited from us advice, and they wanted to know where, what, how much, you know, how far, which cities, population. So this is a huge, giant retailer asking a small to mid-size halal company how to serve the market. And this is really monumental in my view. Where we stand today, and what I can tell you is all thanks really to God and to the effort of a lot of people. We've increased the number of items that Walmart is carrying. We've increased the number of locations in which our product is, and there are plans for expansion. Crescent, initially, Crescent Foods had prepared themselves, not because Walmart came knocking, but prior to that, by investing in high-quality technology in the production area, so equipment, having the right equipment, being prepared, being on cutting-edge technology, logistics, having a fleet of refrigerated trucks, and not only that, knowing, having business intelligence, knowing your business, knowing about packaging and packaging trends, having the options for mainstream. How many times, and this, I don't mean to exclude anyone, but how many times can you all, the Muslims in the room, can relate to having a bag of dripping chicken coming from your butcher, and you're worried about your car because it's going to drip all over your car because it's just, that's the way it's packaged. And there's, I'm not knocking that, that is a reality. And where do we want the reality to be? We want to have options. So Crescent, again, being forward-thinking that way, was able to plan and look at packaging in the industry and say, you know, tray packs. You walk into any grocery store and there are trays there with film. We can put our chicken in trays too, even though it's halal. So again, Crescent had a working knowledge of what was going on in the industry, so it prepared us so that when Walmart came calling, there was certainly, we were able to move quickly and respond to the call. That was the start of the relationship. Now let's talk about maintaining it. I think Jack had just mentioned, Imam had just mentioned here about aligning yourself with the company and with company initiatives. And it's very interesting because this is something I was thinking about. How can we align ourselves with the overall big corporate picture? Well, let's look at some of the initiatives at Walmart and what drive decisions and who they do business with. I want to point out how we can be a successful partner by paying attention to these initiatives. First of all, and my graphics, they mean something to me, but let me explain to you. The eggs remind me of local suppliers. If you know about Walmart, one of their key things is to support local farming and local suppliers and sustainable agriculture. Natural products, they are starting to acknowledge and expand the fact that people are looking for natural products. Nutrition for kids, this is a trend. Nutrition for everyone, for that matter, low sodium. There are, let me see, recently in the news we've got Campbell's, Pepperidge Farm, Sara Lee, even Pepsi, all reducing sodium in their products. I can honestly say at Crescent Foods, when we're developing new product, that's something we look at, and what the sodium level is, and what it's going to be on the label, and how nutritious is it going to be for all of us. Understand, and this is how we share and how we elevate the platform of halal. Maintaining the relationship goes to sustaining growth. And this, it's a statement that I want you to pay attention to. Sustaining growth, that's our responsibility. Walmart's not going to do it for you. As much as they want your product, it is your responsibility once you're there to sustain it and to grow it. And some of the things that we're able to do, specifically with Crescent, and these are again ways we've partnered, you only get one shot at it, so you might as well stay in Walmart and go ahead and do some of these things that you know are going to work. These are grassroots campaigns, calling campaigns into regional zip codes, where you know this population is very easy to target. If you know that you have halal products in a particular area, you can email blast, you can do calling campaigns, you can sponsor events, community events, schools, organizations in the area. And it's very grassroots, but it's very, very successful. We actually did a calling campaign early on, and we were able to track the number of cases sold, and we saw an increase right after doing that campaign. So these are just some examples of where we're involved. The active involvement, I mean, in not just causes that affect Muslims. One of the key things to remember about Crescent Foods and our partnership with Mainstream is we are not looking to just target the Muslim halal customer. We want the halal consumer, somebody who's going to buy halal because they align themselves with the attributes of halal. So we're going to help out Katrina victims. We helped out refugees in local areas. These are things where you're involved in the community, you're doing your duty as a company, you're socially responsible, but at the same time, your partners, people like Walmart, they say, hey, that's kind of universal. They're not, that's great. So basically, these are some of the things that we can talk about further, campaigns that we've worked with. A quick thing, because I know we're short on time, the examples I've given have mainly been Walmart, but we have partnered with other mainstream companies and we've added value. We've filled voids in these markets. I can give you the Costco example. Costco had a salmon burger, a black bean burger, they had an Angus burger. They didn't have a chicken burger. Costco called, we filled the void. And we happen to be able to get halal there too, by the way. And then really to conclude, keys. One of the things we were talking about at lunch, and I think several people have said it today, fulfill your promises. Don't go above and beyond and overcommit. If you're going to work with a mainstream corporation, this is no joke. Deliver on what you promise and be consistent in your service. And there. I wanted you to see the product, and there it is, and welcome your questions later. Thank you.
Thank you, Joohi. presenter is Rashid, Ghazi, who is the co-founder of Paragon Marketing. His business is in sports and entertainment, event development, and sponsorship sales. Please join me in welcoming Rashid Ghazi.
Assalamu alaikum. Thanks for having me. A little side story. I grew up in Skokie, Illinois, where there were 3 Muslims. We moved in 1979, and out of Skokie, actually, Sevilla is here with her husband Faisal running the conference. She grew up about 2 blocks from me, and I used to take a train with her dad to work every day, work in different places. Out of that same little group was Azhar Usman, the comedian. Out of that same little group was Habib Qadri, who was a great educational leader for Muslims. Out of that same group was my brother-in-law, my wife a mile from me, who was the youngest bureau chief in CNN history when he went to Pakistan right after 9/11. So we're really proud of our little Skokie, Chicago community. And thanks for organizing this conference. If you come to New Jersey, we miss you guys over there. What I do for a living, I'll talk to you about the documentary in a minute. But I kind of want to talk to you a little bit about what I do for a living and kind of how it could help potentially you guys. What I do is we run a sports marketing company, and we advise companies like Gatorade, Continental Airlines, Nature Valley Granola Bars on how to market their products leveraging sports, entertainment, and college-related partnerships. So it could be they're going to sponsor the US Open. It could be we're going to tie our clients to the PGA Tour or the Ryder Cup, or it could be we're going to do an athletic endorsement with American skier Lindsey Vonn. And one of the questions I always get from my friends is, I've got an event, it's a Muslim event, can you go get Old Spice to give me $15,000 for it? Or can you get money from this guy for me? Or can you get money from this company for me? And the answer usually is no, because I don't sell Muslim events for a living. I buy events for my clients that fit their marketing needs and objectives. And I think many times when you approach corporations, you've got to understand who they are, what do you have to offer, and how is that going to benefit them? I don't sell products into corporations, but I do put corporations into events and properties. And so I think the number one thing that we do when we guide our clients is we sit down annually with our clients and review what are their marketing objectives, what are their tactics, what are their strategies, where are they headed, and where do they want to be. And most companies will have a plan. They'll have a general market plan, they'll have a Hispanic plan, they may have a plan to reach Gen X, depending on what their product is. But if you're going to approach a corporation and ask them to sponsor an event like this, or the ISNA convention, or your website, you have to understand, before you tell them who you are and what you have to offer, you need to understand is who they are and what they need from you, or what can you deliver to them. I think the second thing that you've got to look at is efficiencies. Most large corporations, on a regional or local basis, they may sponsor a smaller event, but really they're interested in reaching a mass amount of people and doing it really efficiently. So if somebody came to a corporation and convinced them that the average Muslim consumer, the average Muslim businessman, or the average person who attends a convention like this is somebody that they want to reach, 200 people would be great, but 50,000 or 100,000 people would be even better. And if you could go to that corporation and say, I've convinced you that you want to reach this target audience and you want to be there, and here's why. If you could put together a map for them that gave them access to 50 conventions and to 50,000 people, and then beyond that, if you could fulfill whatever they wanted to do at that convention for them, whether it's booth setup, whether it's staffing, whether it's literature, whether it's brochures, and instead of making it 50 buys and 50 negotiations, if you made it 1-by-1 negotiation and 1 post-event report, you'd have a lot better chances of actually securing money from that corporation. And we receive, Continental Airlines is one of my clients, we're receiving a given year 1,000 proposals for people who want Continental Airlines to sponsor something. Just the other day I had a call from a friend of mine who is producing the Emmy Awards in Chicago. And she's like, the Emmy Awards in a week and a half, I need a ticket for this celebrity from LA who's coming into Chicago. Can you give me an airline ticket? I'll give you an ad, I'll give you a program, I'll give you this, I'll give you that. I'm like, your celebrity's coming from LA. We have Continental Airlines. Continental hubs are Cleveland, New Jersey, and Houston. She's like, yeah. I give her a first class ticket. She's like, yeah. I go, your celebrity want to stop for 5 hours in Houston, wait for a flight to Chicago? She's like, oh. She goes, no, I need a direct flight. I said, then Cindy, I love you. We've been friends for 20 years, but we don't have direct flights. Maybe when the merger with United comes through and we're representing United, hopefully we'll have a direct flight for you. But we get those kinds of calls all the time. My first job out of college was I was a media buyer plan at Leo Burnett for McDonald's on sports. Dream job, I love sports. And I have proposals all the time, because anyone who's got a sporting event thinks McDonald's should sponsor it. So do your homework, look at the efficiencies, and then the next thing we've talked about is just like Crescent Foods, if they sell to Walmart, they have to deliver. If you are selling a sponsorship to a corporation, you got to make sure that you fulfill fulfill and deliver what you promised them. And if you can under-promise and over-deliver, more people, more numbers, more access, that's even better. So part of the job is getting that sale in, but before you collect that check, make sure you've delivered value back to that client. And then beyond that, it's building a long-term relationship with that client. And that literally having that client be an evangelist for you within your corporation. But 10 years ago, a friend of mine called me up and goes, there's this kid named LeBron James, have you heard of him? I said, absolutely. He goes, I'd like you to put him on television in Cleveland, because I was televising high school games in Chicago. And I said, I've got no interest in putting LeBron James on in Cleveland, but I'd love to put him on ESPN. And I hadn't done business with ESPN in a few years, so I called the head of basketball programming for ESPN. I said, well, I don't want a high school game on TV. He goes, if you could put Michael on, Kareem on, Oscar on, would you have? He goes, yeah. I said, you just got the rights to the NBA draft. Would you like footage for your draft show? Absolutely. And I said, LeBron is the one kid on the internet where everyone's trading clips of him and everyone's seen him play, but nobody's actually, everyone's heard about him, but no one's seen him play. So we put LeBron James on, and we put him on television. I called 150 companies to get someone to give me money to put LeBron on, because ESPN was like, you can put him on, but you gotta pay us. So LeBron was on the cover of SI, and there wasn't one person. He was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. There were 3 companies that ended up sponsoring LeBron James. One was Gatorade, client mine. One was Progressive out of Cleveland, where the lady said, I think I know who James LeBron is. This might be a good idea. And another one was Old Spice. And at Old Spice, there was a brand manager, Kyle Schlegel, 26 years old, who was a Kentucky grad. And he happened to subscribe to a website called Rivals. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Rivals, but it's a high school site that analyzes all these recruits. And we were talking about Tyler Hansbrough and where Greg Oden might go and who LeBron was. And he was really interested in basketball. And he was amazed that I knew all these Kentucky recruits. And he ended up buying a sponsorship in that game, and we had an 8-year relationship where Old Spice ended up entitling our entire series. And it was because we were able to build a one-on-one connection. I figured out he was a Kentucky fan. He liked basketball, and he took that series and helped me put it on TV to where now we've got 60, 70 games a year in high school sports that we do with ESPN. So I think those are my kind of bits of advice for you. You can ask me questions later on. The doc, real quick. I think we've done a great job here talking about how American businesses can reach Muslim consumers. One of my concerns as a marketer has been the fact that I don't think us as Muslims have great control over our brand and our brand messaging, right? There's no one manager, there's no one company who controls our brand message and our brand image. And I think in the media we've been misrepresented in a lot of different ways. And in many ways, every single one of us here is doing our little share. And that is the story about this film, these kids in Dearborn, was this a friend of mine called me up from USA Today about 7 years ago and said there's this team of Arab kids who are fasting and playing football and they got to the state semifinals. A pretty cool story. He goes, I know you're Muslim, you should look into it. So I went out to Dearborn and met with the coach, who was Christian at the time, and learned about these kids. I thought this could be an unbelievable story for us to tell to all Americans, because it was a story about immigrants, it was a story about fasting, it was a story about the impact of 911 on that community. And it was a story that nobody had really heard about, except for those people in Michigan and people who read little articles here and there, and a story that I thought really needed to be told. It took us 6 years to get the rights to tell that story, because the coach at the time didn't want anything to do with this thing. When the coach was a new Muslim coach, he gave us the rights to do something. He actually told us we could do it. The board rejected us twice to where I had to drive in and go see the board and convince them to do it. And they figured out they wanted to do it when they found out, one, even though I was Muslim, I could play golf. And two, that my 10-year-old daughter was one of the best golfers in the country. Once these old white guys figured out that I liked to golf and they liked to golf, they approved the documentary in 2 seconds. It's interesting, but it's about, again, building those connections with people and you never know where they come from. So we shot this doc, and my wife actually, and myself, funded it. I got my brother-in-law to co-produce it with me, and we didn't make this film to make money. Although I'd like to get my money back. we mainly made it to tell the story of Muslims in this country and to show people that you can be Muslim, you can be Arab, you can pray in a mosque, you can fast, but you can love this nation as well. You can adopt the best things that this nation has to offer, but also be true to who you are. And the people in Dearborn are absolutely inspiring. The kids in the movie are inspiring. Where we're at right now is we've got a 90-minute rough cut done. We're turning into about a 75-minute movie, and we're hoping to get it on ESPN or another major national network around 9/11.
Thank you, Rashid, Ghazi. Now we come to your questions, and I'd like to pose the first question to our marketing experts. It comes from Aziza Tahir, who is here representing Aziza Magazine. We should give them a round of applause. Aziza Magazine. A question to our marketing experts: how do we increase advertising dollars between Muslim businesses and mainstream corporations to the Muslim media? How do we increase advertising dollars between Muslim business, mainstream corporations to the Muslim media? Tariq.
Well, I think there is a best practice available if you look at the Hispanic market. The Spanish television, Univision, people are surprised when I tell them that does more in revenue than ESPN, MTV, VH1, or GBS. And the reason that they've been able to do that is they made a very strong business case that there is a critical mass that's following that, and the case to make in the general market that we can get Muslims through mainstream media. Well, you can get the Latinos also through the mainstream media, but then Univision and Telemundo have not existed. So I think we really have to make sure that we provide the right market intelligence and not a knee-jerk reaction. So the Honorable Senator does a great job. So get authentic, sourceable information and make a strong business case that this really makes a good investment and ROI for them.
Joohi, you want to make any comments on this?
Okay,
thank you. This question also is a marketing question for Mr. Khan. Is there any initiative within PepsiCo to target Muslim Americans just the way Best Buy stated tapping into the market? In other words, is there any initiative within PepsiCo to target Muslim American market?
Quick answer, I don't work for PepsiCo, but the best way to have them react to something, tell them Coke is doing it.
Joohi, this question is for you. Can you tell of anything Crescent Foods' partnership with Walmart would have done better or differently? Even though it seems you did a great job, is there anything that you would have done differently with respect to your partnership with Walmart?
Certainly, there's always something we could do better. I truly feel that on our end, perhaps connecting with the end consumer, we could do a little bit better. We seem to be a little bit removed. We do rely on Walmart for information. We have been told by, through their research and their sources that actually the customer buying the product at Walmart, a huge majority of the customers, to them, it's not even a Muslim customer. So that tells you right there, and it's eye-opening that this product is a mainstream product. There's a large percentage, greater than 50% of the people buy halal chicken at Walmart, according to Walmart, are not even Muslim. So from Crescent's standpoint, when I hear things like that, I think, do we really know who the halal consumer is? So yes, we haven't done quite what Jack has done and driven all through the state of Florida, but I think that is very valuable. I think we need to be in the market. We do visit Michigan, we do visit other areas, but going in and really watching who's buying. And when you know your consumer, you can serve your consumer better. And being a company that supplies in almost 30 states, we can't always do that, but we need to get better at doing that.
There's one thing that perhaps we should think about is how do we better demonstrate the competitive advantage of halal food, other than perhaps to borrow a phrase from people nationally who report to a higher authority, which we do of course, but maybe we need to also highlight some other competitive advantages with respect to halal foods and halal products in general. This question is for Jack. How do you research your consumer before reaching out for deciding who to reach out to for corporate partnerships? How do you research your consumer before reaching out or deciding who to reach out to for corporate partnerships?
Well, I would use obviously previous experience on this, where there's a
a mature database of consumers that we have, and you know, there's multiple resources through one syndicated data, so you can see where your product is selling, either through services like IRI or Nielsen, where you can look and see where the product is selling, or you can, if you're selling to someone like Walmart, you get the same sort of data on a store-by-store basis, and you start to see specific areas that might be popping up. What I always am interested in is also the areas perhaps where the consumers might not be doing as well as we expected. And so what's going on there? What's causing that particular issue? And then it really comes down to how you want to define your consumer. Do you want to just define them geographically? Do you want to look in specifically by income level? Something that's important to us now selling a value-added product is the consumer that we're selling now needs to. They don't necessarily need to be affluent, but they certainly need to be willing to understand the value of the product is that we're selling. So who could that be? That could be that could be a well-educated person. Perhaps they're not making a six-digit salary, but if they're well-educated, then they do understand the added benefit that halal is going to bring once we make a case study for them. So again, you know, I look at what data is available, and many times it's at a smaller level, it's very difficult to get that sort of data, and that's where having good relationships, good partnerships with the stores, both at the headquarters level, and even if you can at the key store level, talk to the people in the stores, go in, hand out coupons to the people in the stores if you're in the food business, or if you're in any business, hand out free products. Make sure that people in the store are able to try the product. You'll get a lot of information back that way that will be very helpful in understanding what your particular situation is.
Thank you. This question is from Amin, who is here representing the Lone Star Crescent Company in Dallas, Texas. And the question, I believe, is directed to you, Jack, as well as to Joohi. What are the major challenges in adjusting meat production to comply with halal standards? What are the major challenges in adjusting meat production to comply with halal standards?
Well, in the case of Crescent, the company throughout the process is halal from farm to fork. So we do have control of the entire process. So the standards, the Sharia board that we use, all of the things that would affect the halalness of the product are within our control. So where it starts with the feed, at the hatchery level, all of those things, I mean, we control that. So our situation is a little bit different, with regards to the fact that it is just our processes within our control. So that is our primary business, and those are the points that we look at across the board.
I would add to that. I mean, it's been discussed earlier today in the some of the other panels. The key challenge is really setting your own standard based on multiple standards that are out there. And what we've chosen to do is certainly to take look at what everyone is saying and to set a standard much higher than that for ourselves. And in that way, if whatever happens in terms of a consolidation of standards, as did with kosher 40, 50 years ago, or that sort of thing, as did with organic back in the 90s, that sort of, whenever that happens, we'll be in the right place, because it will happen. And that's, so the key issues are, for us, we have a couple of key issues, of course, hand slaughter. no stunning. Those sorts of issues are the kinds of things that we look at very strongly. And poultry is, as the animal gets larger, the difficulties get larger. And that's why today we see that most of the protein that is available by and large is chicken and lamb and that sort of thing. And it starts to, the stream starts to narrow quite a bit beyond that.
Thank you. Joohi, here's a question for you as a follow-up. You mentioned dripping chicken. Dripping chicken. If you don't walk away from anything from this conference, you'll remember dripping chicken. Are Crescent chickens cold water chilled or are they air chilled? This is from Dr. Short.
They're air chilled.
They're air chilled. Thank you. And this question is for the entire panel. What's the biggest struggle or obstacle you faced in partnering with mainstream corporations? Please give an example. What's the biggest struggle or obstacle you faced when establishing a partnership with mainstream corporations? That's for the entire panel.
One of the things I would say, whether it's a small mainstream company or a large corporation, they don't really have an idea of how well this product should do. One of their key concerns is always sales, because you're taking prime real estate on shelf and a freezer. So I would say a challenge would be, what is success? It's defining success at the mainstream level. So selling X amount, you don't really necessarily always have history to look at to say is this product successful or not. You know, if they give you a benchmark, the challenge is what's that benchmark based on? Is that based on Purdue and what Purdue's going to sell? How can that be relatable to a product that's not a Purdue? So I would say one of the challenges is certainly looking at measuring success and how to until they have more history.
I'd say one of the challenges of working with large corporations, especially if you're an entrepreneur, is they're very slow moving. And there's a process involved. So, for example, one of my clients in General Mills, their fiscal year starts next June. We're already planning right now for what we're going to do starting in June of next year. And so, when you've got something that's important to you and it's extremely urgent, it might be 4 months away, budgets are allocated 12 months out. And so I think part of the challenge that as you as businessmen may face with this woman, when you're looking to work with companies, is you've got to have your planning done well in advance, and you've got to have some patience and work on their time cycles, where you may talk about something today, and it may take a year and a half, or 2 years to actually implement it.
I think one of the challenges is that we have been packaged very differently when you go to mainstream corporations. You know, somehow we try to focus way too much on this is halal meat, this is Muslim market. You know, Chinese food in China is not Chinese food, it's food. You know, when you really look at it, the halal meat is not only for Muslim, it is there because the standards are higher, it's much cleaner, and the quality is good. And by the way, people who are not Muslim can eat it too. So I think when we're making a case, we really have to show that this is a case for a critical mass. But there's a particular segment, the niche market, that can really benefit out of that. And if we focus way too much, with a religious package, sometimes, especially in this country, people want to back off. Show it as a lifestyle, as a requirement, but not solely because of religion.
And then the last thing I would add, also in the consumer product business, it's been talked about also here today, which is data. These large companies, right or wrong, live or die by data, which influences generally their decisions. And there is a percent of data on the halal market in terms of how it's actually doing right now, and in terms of what's tracked by the accepted means, the IRI, Nielsen, and the like. There is, we were presented this morning with a lot of good information by Gal. There are a lot of Ogilvy, Nor as well. It's a matter of taking a lot of time to go out to all of these disparate sources and pull the right pieces together to tell the story that is compelling that yes, the market is there for this particular item, whatever it is, and in your particular area. It's very hard these days for a buyer at a large company to make an emotional decision. They have to have something to back it up because they have a boss, and their boss isn't going to want to hear, "Oh, I thought it was the right decision." Everybody needs to, I think we've heard CYA before. That's what you've got to provide them.
Thank you. We have a few more questions that I'd like to give you an opportunity to respond to. Although it seems that Walmart has done a great job of providing Muslim customers with products as well as others suited to their needs, do you think that they have done enough to reach out to that consumer, to the other consumers, or captivate them in terms of the market that you're trying to reach? This is for Jack, Joohi.
I'll just make a quick comment on it, which is, it's one thing to keep in mind about a company like Walmart. There are over 2,400 supercenters serviced by over 60 distribution centers. The distribution channel, the logistics and distribution are intense. And so this goes back to what I was saying before in terms of that buying decision and that sort of thing. Could they be doing more? Absolutely. But it's not a straightforward, yes, the consumer's there. The logistics absolutely get in the way, and that's part of what we're talking about, understanding how that works in a particular market, and that's what is critical in terms of helping them to expand.
And I think, credit is due. They stood up and said, we want halal. I mean, we can always say, what can they do better, but they are trying to start somewhere to serve the market, and as the largest retailer in the world taking that stand, I think that's a step in the right direction. Their new formats that they're coming out with, right now their supercenters average 185,000 square feet. They're going to smaller formats. They have started with neighborhood market formats, which are like 30,000, 40,000 square foot stores. Why are they doing this? To take less space. They're going into urban areas. They're going into perhaps an area where they can reach our consumers a little bit better. So we don't know always what's going on behind the scenes, but I feel everything I read and look at about Walmart, they know what they're doing. And certainly we have to be patient, we have to support it, we have to drive that demand. If you're shopping in Walmart for your toiletries and your soap and ask for an entree, a frozen entree, ask for, halal fresh chicken, ask for the products you want, because guess why? They called around and said, where can we get halal chicken? They called a distributor of ours and said, hey, you know anyone that does halal chicken? And they were referred to us because consumers asked for it. Same thing happens with people like Costco, with ShopRite. There are consumer demands, there are emails that are coming in, and these buyers will vouch for it. So ask for it, appreciate the fact that it's there, and just push ahead. We demand, and we'll receive it.
So invite your neighbors over for chicken dinner. Tell them, man, it's a halal chicken, and ask them to go to Walmart and buy the chicken, right? So that's a way of producing and advertising. Joohi, one other question for you, though, and that is, someone wanted to know what Walmarts, in I guess the area of Walmarts do you service?
Predominantly the Metro Detroit area currently, but looking to expand through the Midwest.
And the final question is related to the documentary, Fortune High School, and this is for our brother Rashid. The questioner wanted to know, do you have any plans for a YouTube clip?
Yeah, regarding Walmart, and you guys are in initial stages of Walmart, one of the challenges some of my clients have with Walmart, and I'm not on the sales and distribution side, is that they've become Walmart dependent and Costco dependent. And so at some point, so much of your business is driven by Walmart, so much of your pricing is there, and the prices get lowered by Walmart to where you are literally at Walmart's beck and call. That may be a great problem to have at some point, but I think it'll be interesting to see what happens as far as developing additional distribution options so that the halal food companies are much more diverse in distribution, hopefully, inshallah, so that they'll have a little more power in that negotiation process. That'll be interesting to see what happens 3, 5, 10 years from now.
Can I point one quick thing, because I would have to say, they were surprised that they weren't a bigger portion of our business than they wanted to be. So it was very interesting, and you cannot be a slip to Walmart. And certainly when it comes to pricing, I think you'd be amazed. You know, when they want a product, they'll pay for their product. So you do not necessarily, what you would think that they just beat you up for price. I think everybody may have a different feeling on it, but we certainly, it's amazing that if you were to look at a company and the customers we serve, you know, Walmart's not our top customer. But slow and steady, and certainly, you know, we're not jumping in. We've been doing business for 2 years with them. Thank God it's been going well. But we certainly are very aware and going very cautiously.
Regarding the doc, we put that clip on YouTube about 3 months ago and got over 100,000 hits. I didn't put my name against it because I wasn't sure what crazy people are out there who may not like it and might get a hold of me. I've got a business to run. So I put Fortson the movie in Gmail and received thousands of emails from all over the world. And I think one of the amazing things about the clip, and we put, that's a too long clip to have on the internet, but we did it anyway, was to see what the response would be. Because you may think there's a great idea, but we don't have the resources to go and test something like this. We just went and did it. And the response, I think, especially given what's happened in New York around the Islamic Center Mosque, whatever you want to call it, or you want to position it, has been, I think a lot of Muslims were like, wow, there's somebody out there stating something about us as to how we feel in a real live way. It's not somebody on Fox News or CNN or somebody who's planned or a spokesperson, it's real kids. And I think the reason the doc works, the trailer work, is because it's a story about everyday American kids. And every story in that doc is through the eyes of kids, and kids are quite innocent. We've got a 90-minute version done. We're going to start releasing little segments on YouTube. Our goal is to get it on national television, distributed in a limited release in movie theaters. I honestly don't think, as much as I love it, the average American is going to pay $10 to go watch the movie. Docs are really hard to make money on. Not every doc's a Michael Moore film. Very few are, in fact. So the goal here is to get maximum distribution. That's why we're talking to ESPN. When I go back and talk about relationships, I've had such a long relationship with ESPN. Their head of entertainment, who's doing the 30 for 30 series, is African American. We golfed at Pebble Beach 2 years ago. Hadn't seen him since. The guy who works for him said, you know, my boss has this trailer. So we were golfing here at Yasmin Lane, actually, right down the street, for a golf tour that I had. And the third hole, he goes, what are we meeting for? And this is one of the busiest guys in all of ESPN. And I said, I got a doc I want to show you. So we golfed for 5 hours. I showed him the trailer for 5 minutes. He left, said, get hold of my guys, I'm really interested. So we're in this process of now trying to improve our product to them, developing it, getting it better, and sending it to them, getting feedback. And our hope is that we can put this on as a 91111 special. Because if the only people who see the movie are us, if the only people who see the movie is a PBS audience, then we failed in our job. I'm trying to hit that Louisiana high school football fan or college football. Basically, the Southeastern Conference is what I'd like to hit the Big 12. The people who watch football down there. Because they're the ones who need to hear this message. They're the ones who don't really have a lot of Muslims in their communities. I think they're the ones who, if you see what these kids have gone through and the tradition they have, where the father is a Muslim and he's taught his son how to play football and he transfers to Jersey from the dad, from the father to the son. If you look at the moms who wear a hijab, but they're the room moms, they print the t-shirts and they hand the food to the kids and they cheer the sidelines. It's very, very much American. And I've told you, this is not a story about Muslims, it's a story about American and immigrants. It's an immigrant story, just like we want to hear about roots, just like we want to hear about the Italians and the Irish. This community has an immigrant story to tell. It's a phenomenal story. So that's the way we're positioning it. Inshallah, we're going to do it. Hopefully, we'll get it out to mainstream audience so that everyone can see it and learn from it as well.
Thank you. On behalf of the AMCC, as well as our distinguished audience, I'd like to thank our distinguished panel of Rashid, Ghazi, Joohi, Tahir, Jack, Acree, and Tariq. Let's give them a round of applause. Our final comment is just this, and that is, it's somewhat of a spiritual, maybe philosophical statement that I'd like to leave with you. And that is, there was a time when Imam Muhammad said to us about going into business. He said that we should make our business a Muslim. We should make our business a Muslim. And that is to remind us that when God introduced himself to Muhammad the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, may the praise and peace be upon him, He didn't introduce himself as Allah. He introduced himself as a Rabb. He introduced himself as a creative being. He introduced himself as a nurturing reality. He introduced himself as an evolving reality. He introduced himself as a sustaining reality. And I think that's the kind of business that we want to have also. A creative business, a sustained business, and an evolving business. Thank you. Peace be upon you.